In episode 6, Juliet wakes up and she's alive. Solo found her. He gave her some antibiotics, he nursed her back to health, but in the process he did do something. And that something was hide her suit. He tells her that he's not giving the suit back until she helps him with the pump. As soon as she fixes the pump, she can have the suit, she can have the helmet, and she can go back to her own silo. But without that fixed pump, there is no suit. Now, back at Juliet's silo, it's complete chaos. Not only are members of the silo very angry about the barricade that has been put up and is still up, even though Knox and Shirley clearly made it past it, no, there's even chaos going down in the Down Deep. There's infighting going on with Mechanical. Because what Bernard did was shut off the food supply. So no food is arriving in Mechanical until Shirley and Knox are turned in. And one of the issues that Knox and Shirley have is the fact that Paul is down there, and he's certainly searching for him as well. Knox and Shirley are planning on making a speech to everybody in the Down Deep, but before they do that, Knox needs to go visit his buddy. It's the same guy that he told, hey, if anybody comes here asking for weapons, don't make them. The guy did heed the order, but it didn't stop him from making weapons. He's just been stashing them. And Knox, knowing that this would be the case, is going to take full advantage of it. After getting a good look at all the weapons that the Down Deep has now to work with, Shirley and Knox go to handle this crowd that is freaking out because they have no food, and they don't really know what to do. Shirley and Knox go to address the crowd that is freaking out a little bit because they don't know what to do. I mean, the food supply is cut off, they're angry, they're stressed out, and a lot of them are screaming for Shirley and Knox just to turn themselves in. But Knox and Shirley aren't about to do that. They tell the crowd that they did not, in fact, kill the judge. They were set up. But some members of the crowd don't care. They still want Shirley and Knox to turn themselves in just to get the food supply restarted. And that's when Walker stands up and tells the crowd, this is not who we are. We are Mechanical. We help each other out. We find a way. And we will do that now. We're not turning on our own. But what really settles the crowd down is when Teddy wheels in a bunch of food that was sent to them from friends up top. They were throwing bags of food down in the trash bin that was arriving in Mechanical, and now they have a supply. News, however, about the food drops do reach Bernard, and he's not surprised about it. He actually banked on this. He's not concerned at all. In fact, he tells Edmondson, this actually speeds up our timeline. Put raiders at every single trash chute, and they'll run out of food soon enough. And this is also something that Shirley and Knox know, that it's only a matter of time before they do, in fact, run out of food, or Bernard finds a way to stop them, so they have to do something about it. They need to use those weapons and use the force that they have and back the barricade up. While they're formulating a plan, Walker is in her office, as usual, where all she can think about is Carla, because she's in love with Carla, and the fact that she doesn't know what happened to Carla is bothering her. Then she gets a knock at the door, and it's Hank and Billings. Now, even though that Bernard wants Billings to just bring Knox and Shirley in, he's a member of the law. He's going to go about this the correct way. He also, by the way, has Hank, who doesn't believe that Knox or Shirley were capable of such a thing. So while Billings is looking for Knox and Shirley, he's really doing so to get their side of the story. But in order to find Knox and Shirley, he wants to go to Walker first and find out her side of things, even though she wasn't in the room. Billings asks Walker what happened, but Walker says, I'm not telling you anything until you find out what happened to Carla. Get me that information, and then I'll help you. This is now the second issue that Billings and Hank have. The first one being Patrick. Patrick was still dealing with the gunshot wound when they found him, and he wanted a doctor. And the doctor they gave him wasn't good enough because he was a shadow. So Billings ended up emailing his wife and saying, hey, can you find the doctor? Which she was able to do. Dr. Nichols is able to make his way past the barricade, and he arrives in Mechanical to get that bullet out and heal Patrick back up. After the procedure is completed, though, Patrick doesn't want to give any information. So Billings kicks everybody out of the room, and it's the first time you really see Billings get tough with anybody. He tells Patrick that if he doesn't answer the questions, then he's going to call Judge Sims, because he's a judge now, which is something that Patrick was completely unaware of. This is the thing that causes Patrick to cave and tell Billings what he wants to know. He reminds Billings of the time that when Nichols was on the run and all the computers went dark. Billings thought it was a system reboot, but Patrick says no, it wasn't a system reboot. It went dark because Nichols had my friend Danny put something on every single computer in the silo. Patrick starts to guess that they probably rounded up everybody who saw it, gagged in bags so that they couldn't tell anybody. Billings is pretty confused about all of this, and Patrick says it was only up for about 10 seconds, but it was a lot like the page you showed me. The only difference, it was a million times more beautiful. I can't even describe it. Billings is surprised about this, but what he can't figure out is where Sims comes into all this. And Patrick tells him that shortly after Nichols got sent out, Sims showed up and he wanted to make a deal. He put on some dirty clothes, he looked incognito, he threw a firebomb, and in return, he would get some drugs that would make him forget. But considering the fact he got shot, he knows that Sims never intended on actually holding up that part of the bargain. So Billings has that to deal with, along with the fact that he needs to find out what happened with Carla, and he needs to find out where Shirley and Knox are. And Shirley and Knox have formulated a great plan. They're going to take all those weapons and a ton of people, and they're going to storm the barricade. They're going to force the Raiders back. But while they're doing that, they're distracting all of Judicial and the Raiders. And that's going to allow Teddy to literally cut his way with a saw through the silo, cutting his way up. What Teddy doesn't know, though, is that he was seen by somebody with that saw. And the fact that he had it raised a giant red flag with the aunt of a guy named Diego who works in Judicial. He's one of the guys that monitors the cameras. Diego's aunt emails him about this saw and the fact that it's really shady. But when he goes to tell Amundsen is just worried about the fact that you've got Mechanical ready to storm their barricade. So he doesn't want to hear it. And Diego knows he needs to tell somebody, so the person he tells is Sims. He tells Sims all about the group that's heading up with the weapons, but he also tells him about the second group that is using a saw. The kind of saw that would cut through concrete. Immediately, Sims goes to tell Bernard, but when he arrives in Bernard's office, he is shocked because he doesn't find Bernard, he finds Lucas Kyle, who is still doing Bernard's bidding, trying to decode Quinn's cryptic message. Sims angrily asks him where the hell is Bernard, but Lucas doesn't know. So the next person Sims goes to is his wife, who actually had a run-in earlier with Bernard. He had asked her why exactly she arrested the people and then let him go. And while she had a very plausible answer for all of this, you could tell Bernard really didn't buy it. At this point, though, Sims has come to his wife because he needs advice on what to do. And her advice is, let it happen. Bernard and Amundsen made this bed, they need to lie in it. But Sims reminds her, this could endanger a bunch of people, including our son. Sims knows that he can't do anything, because at this point he's the judge, his power's been taken away from him, but Sims says, you can, you're a Raider. And after thinking about it, Camille agrees that she's going to end up telling Amundsen and the rest of the Raiders what's going on. She puts on her tactical gear and she arrives down at the barricade right before Mechanical is ready to rip that barricade down. She tells Amundsen there's about to be a secret attack. They're coming up through the floor. A few seconds later, though, that barricade comes down. A bunch of people from Mechanical, including Shirley and Knox, rush up with weapons, and they're stopped at floor 120. There's a standoff with the Raiders and with Mechanical. Knox tells Amundsen, you might kill 10 of us, but we'll kill all of you. So how about we make this level the new boundary? And Amundsen has no choice but to give in. There's one issue, though. By backing up the barrier, it gives Mechanical a farm, which gives them a food supply, which completely negates what Bernard was actually trying to accomplish here, by starving Mechanical out. And when he finds out what Amundsen did, he rips into him. One person, though, that wasn't a part of this battle at all was Walker, who gets a knock at their door after all the commotion went down, and it's Billings. He tells Walker that he looked into what happened with Carla. Usually the process is pretty simple. Usually criminals get checked into the sheriff's department for processing, and Hank checked. There was no processing for Carla. That only really leaves one thing. Sometimes when Raiders have a high-risk suspect, they're taken into seclusion, which Walker right away says they can't do that. Carla has health issues. She starts begging Paul to do something. He is the sheriff, and he tells her, I might be able to do something, but first I have to clear her name. So please tell me what happened with Judge Meadows. Walker gives her side, and then she tells Paul where he can likely find Knox and Shirley, who are celebrating their victory in Mechanical, but also they start making out. It's hot. And the makeout session is interrupted by Paul. At first they think, okay, this is it. He's coming to arrest us. But he tells them that he just got back from talking to Walker, and according to her, she was told that Knox and Shirley were framed. He asks both of them, would you testify to this? And they say, absolutely. We were framed by Bernard and Sims. After confirming this, Paul gets on the radio and asks for Bernard. He tells Bernard that he's located the fugitives, but he's not revealing their location at this time. He needs to do a full investigation as to what happened in the death of Judge Meadows. Bernard panics. He tells everybody shut the radios down now because he realized that he just lost the sheriff. Paul goes to leave and Knox thanks him for what he did, but Paul says, for what? I'm not here to help you. I'm not here to help Bernard. I'm here to help the silo. That night he has dinner with his wife and his daughter, and she reminds him that what he did was brave. And he says, yeah, I did something brave, but it might have been pretty stupid. I'll give it to the end of the week before I'm stripped of this sheriff job. What's eating at Paul is the fact that he doesn't know whether what he just did was the right thing or not. His wife, though, decides to change the subject. She asks him, when was the last time you took your medicine for the syndrome? And he realizes he hasn't taken it in a while. But what she's realized is the fact that he's not suffering from the symptoms. When he realizes it, he's stunned. He doesn't know why this has happened. And she says, well, maybe you changed. Up top, while Bernard is concerned about what's going on in the Down Deep with Billings, he gets word from Lucas that he's been able to find some details about this cryptic message. Lucas set up a program to try to decipher it, and while he doesn't know exactly what it is, he's been able to decipher words here and there, so he thinks he's on the right track. Problem is, none of the other words are really coherent, and it looks like it's just a code within a code. Bernard says aloud, in order to decipher this, you would have to see the legacy. But Bernard also knows that Lucas doesn't know what the legacy is, and he doesn't have clearance for it. And the only way to get clearance for it is to make Lucas his shadow, which he does. It's been like the quickest promotion in the world.
Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.